Just because you are worthy of salvation does not mean that you are worthy of a woman or her trust. Even God can forgive you and still not trust you. Welcome back to the Make Men Godly Again podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Warder, and today we're talking about trust. This is actually inspired by a comment I got on TikTok, where a man said, if I'm already worthy of salvation, then I don't need to prove myself to a woman. And then he went into all these excuses as to why he doesn't need to prove himself to a woman. And I thought, man, if one man has this mindset, then there's probably many that have this mindset. And I think that trust is a foundation that many aren't patient enough to set with themselves, with their relationship with a woman, or even with God, and they're not focused on it. And that is causing the rest of the foundation and the rest of what they're building to be very shaky and not nearly as healthy as it could be. So this podcast is going to be for the man who doesn't have the best track record, maybe with himself, maybe with a woman, and maybe with God. And likely, if he doesn't have the best track record with a woman or with God, then he doesn't have the best track record with himself. And so we're going to be talking about trust, self-belief, confidence, and we're going to dive into how to build it, how it's destroyed, what the impact of having it or not having it is in each of these relationships, and the consequences of it. And I'm going to do my best to make this very applicable. So that way you can actually take what you've learned from this podcast, apply it to your relationship with yourself, apply it to your relationship with a woman and God. So that way you can actually start to build the trust that is required to have a healthy relationship with any of them. So to start, I'm going to share with you a milestone that has only come from a relationship that is truly founded in unshakable trust, not just with myself, not just with my wife, but with God. And that milestone is I'm going to be a father. My wife surprised me with all of these pregnancy tests the other day, and we're going to have a baby. Normally, here's another one, just for more proof. Normally, people wait until the end of the first trimester, beginning of the second trimester, in order to announce it because they're operating out of fear. Right? They don't want to tell people until they know that the baby's healthy, and they are operating from a place of worrying about something bad happening. And the reality is if something bad happened, right, God's plan that we perceive as bad, something like that were to take place, then we would share the entire journey with you anyways. And so we don't operate out of fear. We walk by faith. And so we are going to lead by example in that, and we're sharing it now. And so today is July 17th, and we just announced it yesterday to the public. And we're going to bring you guys on this journey with us as we become parents and as I become a father and step into another conversation that I get to share with you. And as I do my best to become the best father I can be, as well as the best husband that I can be while becoming a father, because those are two different hats and they can be very difficult to manage both from everything that I understand. And I'm excited to be able to also serve you when it comes to being a father as well. And I do not take it lightly that our Heavenly Father has begun to share his title with me as Father. So let's dive into trust. And we're going to start with self-trust, because the foundation of any relationship that you have with anybody else or anything else starts with you and your relationship with yourself. If you do not trust yourself, then you are not going to have the confidence that you need. You're not going to have the self-belief, and it is going to create limitations and ceilings in your life personally and professionally. It's going to create ceilings in everything. If you do not have trust in yourself, then it is going to limit the goals that you pursue, as well as your belief and your ability to actually achieve them. It's going to limit the level of, or the caliber of woman in which you pursue, as well as your ability to build a healthy relationship with her. the level of health of your relationship is heavily determined on the level of trust and confidence and self-belief that you have. Because if you do not have trust and self-belief, then you cannot lead yourself or your relationship. You will have insecurities and you'll be self-conscious, and that will lead to triggers, and those triggers will lead to you struggling with emotional regulation, which will then hurt the trust that she has in you to protect her and provide for her emotionally and mentally. It's going to impact every single area of your life. It is impacting every single area of your life right now. Your level of confidence is a ceiling. It is impacting how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, how you show up for yourself. It's impacting your identity. It's impacting what you believe you deserve. And ultimately, if you do not have confidence in yourself, then it is going to limit God's ability to use you. It's going to limit your ability to fulfill God's purpose and God's calling on your life. It's going to limit your ability to fulfill your purpose on this earth. Why you are literally here. I can promise you that you did not choose to listen to this podcast. God chose for you to hear it for a reason. And I didn't choose to speak on this topic today. He crafted me into a man who can speak on this with integrity and life experience and fruit, results from building trust with myself, from building trust in my relationship with my wife, and building trust in my relationship with God. So I have the fruit to speak on this, and he placed it on my heart to speak on this topic for episode 4. So you can continue to try to avoid the reality and the truth that this podcast is coming up for you, and you are listening to it for a reason. And you can avoid the responsibility that comes with finally being aware of the fact that trust needs to be focused on, building trust needs to be focused on, and actually implement the things that we are going to discuss in this podcast, instead of it being another podcast that you listen to and don't integrate anything that you learned, just like the books that you read and don't do anything about, and then go to another book and another podcast, and neither of them end up changing your life. So it just ends up becoming mental masturbation. So let's dive in. Number 2 is relational trust, specifically in romantic relationships. If she does not trust you, a harmonious, fulfilling, healthy relationship is not possible. A woman's focus, her main priority, is her own security and safety, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, and if she's a Christian woman, spiritually. So that means that there needs to be trust in every single area in order for you to create an environment that she can be at peace. And in that place, she can become your place of peace. But without that, without trust in each of these areas, there will be consistent conflict. Right? She will create chaos in your relationship, stress. There will be emotional disconnection that comes from that, lack of fulfillment and satisfaction intimately. She will criticize you. She will be hard on you, sometimes very harsh towards you. And in severe cases, she will test you and often be emasculating towards you, which the stress and the weight of that cascades into your health and your fitness, into your business, into your finances, into your career, into your ability to be productive and to focus. So it steals energy from you. It steals money from you. It breaks down your consistency, which is a huge topic that we're going to talk about in this. Let me also say, once I switch my legs over here, reading the Bible periodically and going to church on Sundays isn't enough. If that was enough, then every Christian man would have the discipline and dominion that God designed him to have, and the divorce rate would not be what it is. Now, it can be enough if you have the discipline and the consistency and the commitment to building a deep, intimate relationship with God that allows you to go through your process of sanctification. But for most, that's not the case, which is why God uses people and gives us callings and uses men like me to help men like you who have already been in the pit, who have made all the mistakes and been through the self-destruction, the self-sabotage, and lost all the discipline and the personal power, and built myself back up in Christ through him, through his word, and through obedience every single day, taking a knee, submitting, pursuing God, pursuing a relationship with him, listening, obeying his commands, and allowing him to change me in such incredible ways that are hard for me to even wrap my head around. And I'm not special. There's nothing different between you and I besides where we're at in our journey, but that is it. Third is spiritual trust. God's trust in you and your faith in him. If he can't trust you, little will be given to you. We are called to steward everything that he gives us. Everything. That means this body that you've been given, your health and your fitness. You are meant to manage it well. Your money, your job, your career, your business, your relationships, your marriage, everything he has given you, he has allowed it. Your God-given gifts, you're also meant to steward, which is, again, why confidence is so important, because I promise you that you probably have gifts. You definitely have gifts, but you might not be managing them well because your own fear, your own doubt, your own lack of self-belief or lack of confidence to be able to actually go through the work that is required in order to actually step up and step into your power through him in order to serve him and his children and the way that he has designed you to. And when I say our body and our money and all of these things, what I mean is his. We are meant to manage what he gives us. And you're probably treating your body and your money and your business and your gifts as if they're yours, not his. And if he can't trust you to manage them, to multiply them and be fruitful with them, also your relationship, romantically, your marriage, then he will not give you more. He won't give you more money. He won't give you more opportunities. He won't communicate with you. If you lack self-control and discipline to build trust with yourself, how do you expect to build trust with God? Instead of praying for blessings and for him to help you, pray for the strength to build the discipline and self-control required that he calls you to have, that he calls every man to have. Because with that discipline, that self-control, not only can you build trust, but you can stay focused and disciplined and changing any area of your life. That means your relationship, romantically. That means your marriage. That means your business. That means your finances, all of it. But you can't have the power to change any of it if you do not have discipline and self-control, if you do not have trust with yourself. The trust with yourself also comes into play when it comes to longevity, staying in the game, seeing it through. A lot of guys can say they're going to do something, start doing it, but they fall off so quickly, even when it's something that they feel like God is calling them to do. The parable of the talents outlines this. Matthew 25:14-30. He gives you a little to see what you do with it. What you steward proves what you can be entrusted with. And you can apply this to your relationship with yourself, your relationship with a woman, and your relationship with God. So how is trust broken with yourself? Every time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, that impacts the amount in which you trust yourself. Let's say you say you're going to start going to the gym on Monday, or you're going to start waking up at a certain time. You're going to start eating cleaner. You're going to stop reacting poorly to your wife. You're going to start staying focused. You're going to put a project on the calendar and not procrastinate. Every time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you strip away a layer of that self-trust. It's just like losing or gaining weight. The decisions that you make every single day, you can't see the major impact that they are making on a daily basis, but there's a compound effect over time that eventually leads to a result. And that result either makes you proud or it pains you. So if you imagine like the justice scale, right? But instead it's two buckets. Every time you say you're going to do something and you do it, then a drop of water goes into the bucket that is building belief, trust, confidence. Every time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, then a drop of water is being put into the other bucket that is building doubt, lack of trust, lack of self-belief, lack of confidence. And eventually, over time, there is going to be an outcome, a sum of all your decisions, all of your kept agreements or broken agreements. And at a certain point, your self-doubt will begin to outweigh your self-belief, or your self-belief will begin to outweigh your self-doubt. And eventually, if after breaking enough agreements with yourself, you'll find yourself looking in the mirror at a man that you no longer believe in, that you no longer trust. And some of you have probably been looking in the mirror at that man for a long time, or not wanting to look in the mirror because that is who you see. But the opposite is also true, which is good news, because if you build a powerful track record with yourself, keeping your agreements, doing what you say you're going to do, adding weight to your word, then eventually, after long enough, you will start to see a man in the mirror that you believe in, that you trust, that you have confidence in, to show up for yourself. And if you can show up for yourself, you can show up for others. If you can show up for yourself and others, you can absolutely show up for God. But you have to start building trust with yourself first. That means in the gym, in the kitchen, at work, in business, doing what you say you're going to do in your relationship, actually keeping your word, seeing your word as a contract, a legally binding contract. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. Now, inevitably, there's going to be times where you have to break agreements. So we're going to talk about how to do that and not do damage to trust with yourself and also in relationships. But God says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. The good news is that no matter how horrible or how great of a track record you have with yourself, you can start building a better one today, right now. You do not have to wait. You don't have to go make a bunch of money in order to start doing it because it is free. You can start doing it today. You have to understand that this is the foundation. This is the foundation of every other relationship that you have, is your relationship with yourself. The health of your other relationships, the level of trust in your other relationships cannot exceed the health of the relationship that you have with yourself and the trust that you have with yourself. You can't outperform it with friends, coworkers, women, everybody. With God, your relationship with yourself will reflect in every other relationship. Now, in romantic relationships, trust is broken through lying, even small ones, omitting information. That is also lying. Making things bigger or smaller than they are is also not the truth. That is lying. Avoiding difficult conversations. If she can't trust you to confront problems, to have difficult conversations, then she is not going to feel safe for you to be able to confront problems outside of your relationship, to be able to protect her mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. If you can't have difficult conversations, that is a weakness, that is avoidance. That is a lack of confidence in your communication skills as well, which this is not to make you feel guilty or shameful or feel less than. Like, that's where I was. That's where so many men that I work with, that's where they were. So it's okay. It's just now that you understand that, it is not okay to ignore it. Now there's responsibility that has to be taken in order to actually improve in these areas, to be able to lead from a healthy masculine state, to be able to build a healthy relationship with a woman. If you want her to be able to love and respect and admire and desire you, then you have to be a man that she can trust. She has to feel safe or secure, or you will be stressed out and it will be chaotic, and there will be consistent conflict and disconnection and emotional or intimate dissatisfaction. You don't need to live that way. You deserve to be able to experience the love and joy that God designed us to have relationally. But you have to be a man that's trustworthy. Your word has to hold weight. And every time you say you're going to do something in a relationship and you don't do it, your word starts to lose its weight. So broken agreements is also how trust is broken. And one of the most common ways that trust is broken within romantic relationships. Every time you say you're going to take out the trash after work, or that you're going to walk the dog in the morning, or that you're going to work on that trigger that continues to be, come up whenever she asks you to help around the house, or whatever the case is, if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, I mean, even if it is something small like taking the trash out. I use this as an example because it was one that I experienced. But you do that enough times, and on top of that, say you also don't take the dog out, or you forget to, or whatever the case is, there's a compound effect to that. Even after a few weeks of you saying you're going to do that and not do it, she's going to start trusting you less. And if she starts trusting you less with small things, then she's going to feel like she can't trust you with big things. And if she can't trust you with big things, then she will shift into survival mode, into her masculine, right? And then she will start to take the lead. And then she will resent you for it. And she'll lose attraction and passion towards you. And then that will lead to the emotional disconnection and intimate dissatisfaction. You have to lead. You have to lead, and you have to be able to take your word seriously. And at first it requires a hyper awareness. Like you really, like if you say you're going to do the dishes, do the dishes. If you say you're going to do the dishes once you're done with work and help her out, then do them. And again, we're going to talk about how to handle this if, say, something comes up and you have to break that agreement in order for there not to do damage to the relationship. But you have to focus on this. If you focus on this, dude, I'm telling you right now, this will change everything in your life. I've experienced it. This is the foundation of how I transformed every single area of my life over and over and over again, from a bottomless pit, from a dark place, suicidal, depressed, in full self-destruct mode. I had added 50 pounds around my waist, full of nothing but whiskey and stress. That was it. And I destroyed my relationship. Ended up calling off a wedding, walking away from my job, the prime of my career, with no idea what I was going to do the rest of my life. And I found myself standing in the mirror, looking at a man that I no longer believed in, that I no longer trusted. I'm like, this is not me. How did I get here? And in that moment, I was also drunk, so disappointed in myself. And the peak felt so far away that it felt so discouraging. Like it felt impossible to get out of that pit. But I did it. And it started with focusing on keeping my agreements. I got very clear on where I was. I was very honest, spoke the truth of where I was, right? I got accurate on my location. Then I got very accurate and clear on where I was trying to go. Then from there, I got clear on the agreements that if I kept them long enough would guarantee essentially that I would get to where I wanted to be. Made those agreements strategically, and then I just focused on keeping them every day. That was it. Agreements that were measurable. And so even just, and then again, I found myself in another relationship and I was struggling. We were having challenges and there was things that were coming up. Like I was getting annoyed. I'd finish working my butt off all day, and I'd come home and immediately as soon as I walk in the door, she'd be asking me to help her with something. And I would get annoyed and I wouldn't respond well. And that then caused her to not want to ask me for help, when in reality, I just needed her to give me a minute. And then it led to her asking me for help, but with this like underlying tonality of expecting me to respond poorly, which annoyed me and pissed me off. And I remember a day I was in the gym and I got a text from her that she really needed my help around the house. And I immediately got annoyed. And then I realized, because the other part of my system is taking 100% responsibility no matter the situation. And it doesn't mean that it's all of your fault all the time, because a lot of it's co-created, but it means what it does is it trains your brain to focus only on what you can control. And that gives you the ability to change outcomes and get results way faster than pointing and focusing on the part that somebody else played. And so I like shook it off and realized like, if I was coaching somebody else, how would I do this? And the first response to that was I would put it on my calendar to make sure that every day when I get home from work, I get done with work, I decompress. And then the first thing I do is look around the house and figure out if there's something I can help with. And I made an agreement with myself to do that. And eventually that became habit. And once it became habit, I took it off my agreement tracker and I didn't need to track it anymore because it just became second nature. And anytime I fell off of it, then I would put it back on the tracker and make it an agreement again and get back into it. And so if you focus on this, right, again, with yourself, making sure like, even to this day, I make an agreement with myself. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, take a cold shower, get into my Bible stack, which is a framework that I use to facilitate direct communion with God. You can comment stack below on any platform and I'll send it over to you. And then from there, I do my workout and get into work. But because I don't want to take a cold shower ever at 4:30 in the morning, and it's brutally hard, I end up charging my phone in the bathroom. And I've been doing this since 2019. Charge my phone in the bathroom, and alarm goes off. I walk into the bathroom, close the door behind me, grab my phone, turn it off. And now I put the towel under my phone to remind me of my agreement. I made an agreement with myself, because if not, I'm like, this voice in your head is like waiting for you to wake up and talk you out of of doing what you said you're going to do. And if you don't remember your agreement and you don't remember your why you're actually doing it, then you will forget and you'll allow that voice to win over and over again. And that is going to be you losing and not doing what you say you're going to do. And it's going to break down your trust and your self-belief. And when we getting back to relationships on this, she's watching. She's watching, dude. So no matter whether or not the agreement is with her or with you, she's watching. And so if you say you're going to start working out on Monday and you share it with her, and you say you're going to start getting up at this time or start eating clean or stop drinking or stop smoking weed or stop vaping, whatever the case is, and she watches you not do that or start to do it but fall off quickly, she's remembering that. She is tracking that consciously or subconsciously, and it's breaking down her trust in you. And when it comes to making agreements with others, it does double the damage, because now you know that you broke that agreement, and also they do. And so it makes an even bigger impact on your trust with yourself and then trust with them. And this also goes into God, which we're going to jump into in a second when it comes to how trust is broken there. But if you can focus on this, I promise you, I mean, this, I tell my guys this, whether one-on-one or group coaching programs, like if that's all we did, if that was all we did for 3 months, 6 months, I got some guys that worked with me for 2 years, and we still are making sure that is the foundation of what we do on top of everything else, then it'd be worth it. Because if you have the discipline, if you can be consistent, if you can stay focused, right, then everything else is just figuring out where we want to go and getting clear on the agreements, doing them, and then it's skill development. Sometimes we got to look at hormones if you're really struggling with emotional reactivity, or then we work on communication skills, conflict resolution, leadership skills. A lot of my guys are founders in different companies, and so a lot of this stuff also overflows into their leadership with their team, and so their team doesn't show up the way that they want them to, but that's because they're not showing up the way that they need to in order to be leading the team by example and setting a standard, right? And so this shows up everywhere in our lives. If you do not have an unshakable level of confidence in yourself, and even then, there's so many levels to it. And even like a very well-known public speaker, the level of confidence they have, if they bring it to the next level, then they are going to become a better speaker. And so this is for everybody. This is for me. I stay focused on this as well, because I know that it works. And I know that if there's any result that I want in my life that is within my control, right? Because then there's also God's plan and things that are outside of your control. And so that stuff, you just leave to him. Just leave that to him and have faith, right? Trust in God. And then you stay focused on yourself and what you can control, which is your words, your actions, your reactions, your habits. And if you have the right ones and you can keep them long enough, you can do anything. You can go anywhere. Now, when it comes to breaking trust with God, this is also done through poor stewardship, which we have covered, and then breaking your agreements, especially if you're building a deep relationship with God and you're pursuing him every day and you're having communication, direct communion with him every day, the way that I am. There's been times where he has given me a command and I didn't obey. And so September 2024, I went like 2 weeks without hearing from him. And I was doing my Bible stacks every day. And I went from, having just wild communication with him every day that was just blowing my mind. I never believed that you could have a relationship with God like that. And then all of a sudden he goes silent. And I'm like, did I do something wrong? I'm like, I was still working through my relationship with the word sin and everything. But I'm like, have I been sinning and not realizing it? Like, what is going on? Why has he become silent? And so I ended up getting pretty aggressive in my prayer. I'm like, where are you? Like, where did you go? Did I do something wrong? Like, I need to know. And through my Bible stack, he said, if you listen and do not hear, it may be that you heard but did not act. And immediately it clicked. He gave me something. He gave me a word. He gave me communication. He gave me an order. He gave me a command, and I must not have obeyed it. And so I went back through my stacks 2 weeks and went back to the last clear piece of communication that I got from him, and I hadn't obeyed it. and it was something small. And I made the mistake of judging it as if it wasn't as important. And I was reminded, small hinges swing big doors. And it is not my job to assign value to his commands. It is my job to obey them. And I've seen, especially in Bible studies that are using this Bible stack framework, I've seen hundreds, a couple thousand men continue to show up doing their stacks every single day and not obeying God, and then going back to a stack the next day asking for more communication and more guidance and more wisdom and clarity, and then not obey and not use it, and then keep showing up and keep asking. Meanwhile, at some point, God's like, why would I give you anything else? You haven't done anything with what I've given you, right? Or you've stewarded it poorly. And that happened with me. And so that is also stewardship. Your relationship with God is stewardship. And if you're stewarding it poorly, if you're treating it like it's not a priority, then it is not going to bear fruit, and he's not going to trust you. So I don't know if you listen to the last episode, I dove into the relationship problems that people have with God, specifically because of the way in which they treat their relationship with God, the fact that they actually feel like they're saved, right? And so they receive this salvation, but then they don't move into the second step, this never-ending step of sanctification. And so if you don't do that, then when it comes to salvation, it's really not about what Jesus did on the cross for you. It's all about you. And because if you're not moving into your process of sanctification to become more Christ-like, then it really is just all about you. And the funny thing is if you actually truly committed to your process of sanctification, your life would transform in so many ways. So many ways. It's unbelievable. It's not easy. It's hard. I'm telling you right now, even the stuff that I'm navigating right now, selling everything we own and moving to Miami, me giving away 17.5% of my 25% equity in the company that I had with nothing in exchange besides what God is about to do in my life, right? And the calling that he's placed on my life and what he's going to do with that. All that's hard. Every bit of this is not easy, and it's outlined in the Word. This path, it comes with suffering, but it also comes with more peace, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it. But we have to build trust with God. Not only trust in God, but we also have to make sure that we are truly pursuing, seeking him, and then obeying, not just the commandments and his word, but what he communicates with us, which of course then takes time to truly tune yourself to his voice and how he communicates with you, because he communicates with everybody differently. He communicates very clearly with me through scripture, and with my wife through dreams. She also gets communication through scripture and through her Bible stack that she does each day. But he really communicates with her through dreams. And up until recently, I hadn't experienced that, and then I just started experiencing it, and had my first dream recently about Jesus, and that's after 2 years of building a relationship with God. I had never really experienced that, but recently prayed for it, because up until for the last 6 years, my dreams have just been violent survival dreams and shootouts and reliving experiences of my career as a detective on the SWAT team in New Orleans, and just everything that I went through. And recently all of that shifted, and I've been having prophetic dreams, which even the word prophetic, prophecy, all of that, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. But it was just ignorance and not understanding the fact that is still very much something that is happening. And just like we have a living God and his living word, and that he uses that living word to speak directly to us, he's also speaking through men and through women. And so I think that I was stuck on the fact that prophets and prophesying was about what God is doing, but it also can be used to communicate what God is doing in your life, which we just had a wild experience. 2 months ago, with somebody prophesying over us, and I was very uncomfortable. I'm I don't know how I feel about this, but some of it started to come true, and it's crazy. So that's for another podcast. to get back into to trust with this, trust being broken with God specifically, this again is why the foundation of your relationship with yourself is very important, because it's not just about you keeping your agreements and trusting yourself, but it's also the guilt and shame that you may feel. The guilt, shame, anger, the things that are going on inside of you that you haven't processed properly in a healthy way, that you haven't dealt with. If you are carrying those things, it can make you hide from God, just like Adam did, hiding in a bush, covering himself up in fig leaves. And that then makes you feel this distance from God, and you hide. So you're not pursuing a relationship with him. You're not allowing him to restore you and to change you. And so you have to bring all of the truth to the altar, because he already knows it. He already knows that you're watching porn and masturbating 2 times a week, or that you're sneaking off and having drinks or smoking weed or doing whatever it is that you're doing to distract yourself or sedate yourself from the truth, from your problems. And all he wants is you to just bring it to him, to acknowledge it in your heart, and to ask for his help, and he will help you. But if you don't do that, then these things will impact the way that you behave and operate. That will absolutely impact your relationship with God and his ability to trust you, to trust that you're going to bring the truth to the altar to him, instead of trying to act as if he doesn't already know. So the biggest thing here is really making sure to keep your agreements with yourself, with your wife, with your coworkers. Now, inevitably, there's going to come a time where you have to break an agreement, whether it's with yourself or somebody else. And so it's very important to understand how to break an agreement without it doing damage to the trust that you have with yourself or within that relationship with the person that you have that agreement with. And so there's 3 steps to this. Number 1 is acknowledging that you have to break the agreement. Many of us will not even acknowledge that we're breaking an agreement with ourselves. We'll just continue about our day and ignore it and swipe it under the rug. And then when it comes to acknowledging that we have to break an agreement with other people, we'll oftentimes wait to the last minute, or sometimes don't even acknowledge it. And so the first step is acknowledging that you have to break the agreement as soon as you know that you have to break the agreement. Step 2 is taking 100% radical responsibility for the reason why you have to break the agreement. And step 3 is, if you can negotiate, you then renegotiate the agreement, and that renegotiated agreement becomes a non-negotiable. That way you do not fall into this cycle of breaking agreements, renegotiating them, then breaking that agreement, because then it does actually more damage to your trust, whether it's with yourself or with somebody else. So an example of this would be that you have a coffee date with a friend this Wednesday, and it is now Monday. And your grandmother texts you and reminds you that you are supposed to bring her to the doctor on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Now, she told you this weeks ago, but you forgot to put it on your calendar because it's grandma. Like, how often do you put something on your calendar with grandma? So most people would not immediately message the person that they have the coffee date with to acknowledge that they have to break the agreement. Some will wait till Tuesday, some would wait until Wednesday morning or just a couple hours before. In this process, you acknowledge that you have to break the agreement as soon as you possibly can. This is respect. There's respect for the person's time, for their schedule, for your relationship with them. And so as soon as grandma messages you and you realize you have a scheduling conflict because you messed up and didn't put it on your calendar, you message them immediately. Hey, I apologize. My grandmother asked me a couple weeks ago to take her to the doctor on Wednesday at 11 a.m. and I don't know how long it's going to take, so we're going to need to reschedule. I apologize. I forgot to put it on my calendar. This is you taking radical responsibility. Instead of, like, some people would not acknowledge it until last minute or until the morning of, and then they'd put it on their grandma. Like, oh, like, I gotta go help my grandma. She just messaged me, and they lie. And so, and they blame somebody else, and they put the responsibility on somebody else. And so you acknowledge it immediately. So this is a smaller example would be that you are driving to work or to a business meeting and you realize that you're going to be late. And so instead of immediately messaging them, most people wait till it's like 2 minutes away. Like, say it's 9:58 and they're supposed to be there at 10 and they message and say, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes late. No, when your ETA changes and now it says 10:04, 10:08, you message them immediately, or you call if you because we don't want to condone texting and driving, and you tell them, "Hey, I apologize. I'm going to be late." Now, most people would say, "Oh, it's traffic's fault. I ran into traffic." But the reality is you didn't create enough time for yourself. You didn't leave early enough. And so this is where you take responsibility, radical 100% responsibility. It is all your fault. Now, there's going to be plenty of times where the actual responsibility falls on two people or multiple people and things are co-created, but that doesn't allow you to maintain your power and maintain a deep level of respect in the relationship. People will respect you way more if you actually just take radical responsibility for it. And so at that point, the renegotiating aspect of this happens when rescheduling. It's like, hey, I'd love to reschedule. Let's find a place that is closer to you so it can be more convenient for you. And I'd love to cover coffee. I'll buy you coffee. I'll buy you lunch, something to make it up to you. I apologize. Okay. If it's something where, it's a business meeting that is going to happen whether you're there or not, you can't really negotiate it, but you can take radical responsibility for it and make sure that you don't do it again, or that you make sure that you're doing your best to improve in that area of making sure that you are on time, right? Leaving earlier, whatever the case is. So just to recap this, when it comes to breaking your agreements, to do it in a way that doesn't do damage to the trust between yourself or whoever the agreement is with, you acknowledge it immediately. You take a radical 100% responsibility for the reason why you have to break the agreement. And then if you can renegotiate it, you renegotiate it, but that renegotiated agreement becomes a non-negotiable. That's it. And I've even seen this really allow me to build very powerful relationships with my business partners, with my clients. That they know that I am dependable, that I'll do what I say I'm going to do, that I show up with integrity. So that has led to other opportunities where I've been offered equity in other companies because they know that, cool, yes, sure, I have this experience and these skills, but I also am really dependable. And I will show up and I'll put in the work and I'll do what is required in order to get us to where we want to be. When it comes to my relationships with my clients, before I was really in the business coaching consulting space, and I was working, I had probably maybe 50% of my clients were women, and 50% were men, and especially the women would point out the level of integrity that I had. And so when it came time where I had worked with them for a year, and in 4 different containers where they were renewed 4 separate times, now spending thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars with me, now they have another problem, right? One of them had a problem in her marriage. And instead of going to somebody else who at the time specialized in that, this was like 2020, 2021, where I was not niche down or helping people with relationships specifically, she came to me and asked me if I felt confident in solving that problem for her because she trusted that I have always delivered on my promise. And she's like, maybe this isn't your thing. Maybe you don't feel confident, but I wanted to see first with you because I trust you. Because every time I've invested in working with you, you delivered the result. You delivered on your promise. And because it was a communication problem, because it was a lack of discipline and priority management and distraction management and things of that nature, and scheduling and teamwork that was leading to the challenges in their marriage, I ended up working with her husband as well and helping them solve the problem. And so building this level of trust with yourself and with all of your relationships is one of the most powerful things, if not the most powerful thing that you can do. And it really is truly the foundation of every relationship. And somehow it's not being talked about enough. And so I just want to encourage you. If you are in a place where you know that a lack of trust is negatively impacting your relationship with yourself, if a lack of trust is negatively impacting your relationship with a friend, with coworkers, and especially romantically, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife, your wife, not a wife. We don't live in the old biblical times. Or you feel like there's a lack of trust with God, I urge you to focus in this area. Get clear on where you're at. Be brutally honest of the facts, the real facts, the raw feelings that you have about those facts, what you truly need to focus on. Get clear on where you're at, where you want to be in a way that is truly measurable, and then get clear on the agreements, 2 to 3 things that you can do every single day, not weekly, daily, that are going to move the needle to that. If as long as you keep, right, you're going to start to stack evidence against the version of you that you didn't trust, and start to, while stacking evidence and building trust, getting closer to where you want to be. If that's all you focused on for the next 3, 6 months, 6 years, that's because that's how long I've been doing it now. I mean, the life that I'm living right now, I could have never imagined in a million years. I couldn't have imagined any of this. And it's because of the level of trust that I've built in myself. And it's built a level of mental strength and resilience and my ability to just figure it out. No matter what the challenge is, just figure it out. And if there's any trait that I could just give someone, it would be that. Because being trustworthy, being dependable is going to also attract amazing relationships. I have amazing relationships. I am so, so grateful for it. It hasn't always been the case, but I've now fixed relationships with my parents, and I have incredible business partnerships. I have an incredible community and friends and all these things. And this isn't meant to boast. It's just fruit. That is fruit. Ye shall know them by their fruit. So where I have the most success in my life right now, and have for a long time now, is relationships. And the one that is most important has been my relationship with myself. Where I started 6 years ago, as I told you, I was in a very dark place, and I didn't trust myself. I didn't feel like I deserved. I was in such a place of self-destruction, self-punishment. I stopped working out. I stopped eating clean. I was coping with alcohol. When I walked away from my job as a police officer, I then added in weed, and then replaced it entirely with weed, and then smoked weed for years. And although I eventually then built back my discipline, my confidence, and everything, I still was coping with weed for a while. And so in that place, there was still guilt and shame and anger. And there was still this like self-abuse because I felt like I didn't deserve what I now have. And I love you. And I understand that you may be in a dark place, and I know what it's like. Believe me, I've been at rock bottom twice. I spent months staring at my gun, contemplating punching my ticket, and then in 2023 invested $500,000 into a partnership that got burnt and ended up being in a really dark place where my gun came out of my holster again. And I don't think I've ever publicly shared that until now. But my wife, who was only my girlfriend at the time, ended up having to sell her house to keep us afloat. And I once again felt just very low, and I had to climb myself out of it. And I was a coach at the time. Actually, it closed down my coaching to pursue that. And that's actually what led to me like really struggling financially for a while. And so I'm just sharing some of my personal journey with you here to show you how far I've come. And again, I'm not special. But there's something that I have that you might not have, and that is the discipline and consistency and self-control that's built unshakable trust. And if this is hitting for you, and you know that this is what you need to do, and you're not in a place financially to invest in working with somebody, then you need to commit to doing this on your own and working on this. And if you need some help in how to really go about it, please reach out to me. I'm most responsive on Instagram at Dylan Warter, DYLANWARTER. And if you are in a place where you can invest in yourself, then message me. Let's figure out if it makes sense to work together. I've got guys that, they're working as servers in restaurants, but have managed their money well enough and are in a spot internally and within their relationships that they invest and work with me. And I got guys that are making 7 figures, that own helicopters, and that are still struggling in specific areas within themselves internally and their leadership that is causing really painful problems and unnecessary stress. And so I don't care where you're at. Yes, to work with me, it requires an investment. But you can do this on your own. I did. Right? Yes, I had an environment around me that held me accountable. And so community is super important. And there's so many communities out there that are free. There's communities out there that are subscriptions that are low cost. Like, you can figure this out. It's just important for you to not make excuses and not talk yourself out of it. But at the end of the day, trust. Trust is the thing that needs to be built. And it needs to be built at a significant level. And really, you never stop building it in order for you to have an incredible relationship with yourself, an incredible relationship with a woman, and an incredible relationship with God. And then to also be surrounded by incredible people and have beautiful, fulfilling, healthy relationships. That's what life is about. And God designed us that way, to be relational beings. And so at this point, I really just want you to take this seriously. I want you to take this seriously and start focusing on keeping your agreements and building trust. And if you need help, reach out. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, spending some time with me. Please, if you got some value out of this, please share this with a brother. Even share it with women. All this applies for women, but I'm just focused on serving men. I'm doing what God has called me to do. Share this with somebody. Share it to your social media if you can. Tag me in it if you can. Just help me grow this if it's helping you. And if you haven't yet subscribed, follow. And if you need anything and I can help, please, please, please just reach out. I love you. Appreciate you. Take care.